cake, this is concern. But it just provides a way to communicate. We just ain't very good communicators. And I'm not pointing fingers. I'm talking about me. And you can determine how much this pertains to you or somebody that you love. But we can all, no matter how evolved we are, we can all learn to become more evolved. That's our decision. Oh, that's a little tangent. Sorry. Any thoughts about that? Didn't provoke anything? That's okay. All right. We talked about this before. Every human being's feelings of anxiety can be related to one of three things. How is that true? Well, let's take an example. Anybody here that's willing to share something that they're anxious about?
I have a question. I don't know if this is related to anxiety because it's like a self-defeating trap that I get in, but I put off writing briefs until last day of it. And then if it's federal court, luckily you can stay up until midnight and file it electronically. But I mean, I had it for a month to work on it, so I don't know that that's
Well,
so much this.
yeah, I think that it's related because what you're doing is procrastinating, right? And procrastination is a way for us to avoid. And what are we avoiding? Something that we don't feel confident about.
That, for me, it's not, I just don't want to, if it's a particular brief that I want to work on, I don't know why I do it. I mean, I'm not too worried about my skills. So I don't know that it relates to that.
Maybe not. But typically, we all have kind of a mode of operation. And if my style is I got to wait for the fire to build up under my ass before I make a move, and then I think that's what motivates me. And then I also have an easy out that says, you know, if I had spent more time on it, I'd have done an even better job. So we've got kind of an out that says, you know, it wasn't perfect, but if I had spent more time on it, it would have been great. But
Well, and I don't know if it's because if you don't want to do it, so you feel trapped, like you're, I mean, I don't know.
could be. It's kind of like, I got to do it to finish this sucker out, and I guess that's part of my responsibility, but I'm going to wait till the last possible moment. Yeah, so, okay. So writing the brief. What's the worst part about writing the brief?
Dealing with the weakest part of your case.
Starting?
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the worst part about starting? Huh?
I suppose if you're responding to one, reading the other side's stuff, or if you know if you're the moving party, kind of coming up with theories that you're going to use.
Do we have a case? Basically.
Knowing where you're going.
So trying to sort through, slow down enough to figure out what is my rationale behind my, okay.
Define the idea.
Boys. Okay. So if I've been frantic, I know there's a part of me that knows that I need to slow down before I can figure this out. And I'm confident that I will, but that doesn't mean that I have to slow down, right?
The problem where I get anxious is then when I'm flipping out at 11 o'clock at night, because it's not going as easily as I hope. I'm worried I've heard. Or, you know, at 4:45, or I'm having to have the staff stay late because it's got to be postmarked at a certain date. That's where I start really getting.
Don't know if I've left enough time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a crisis that builds.
You get a paper jam and a computer problem.
Yeah.
And then the raging.
That's right. And then you got font rules, eraser fonts.
yeah, we don't give ourselves the time to really be creative. You know, we're just kind of blocking at that point. So there definitely is an element there of feeling trapped and feeling out of control. And certainly one of the possibilities is if I screw this up, what will people think? I guess I was thinking of some, yeah, I don't think like a lawyer, so I was thinking of something like simple, like flying. Anybody here uncomfortable flying? Okay. Can we just pursue that? What's the worst part for you of flying? Everybody that suffers with anxiety around flying suffers for a different reason. So just because she suffers for this reason does not mean others suffer for it. What's the worst part about flying for you?
Well, I've been on so many, I've been on several bad flights. Lots of turbulence, don't make the landing gears go around.
So you've had some trauma, really, with flying. So what's the worst part about possible trauma?
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. Part of being out of control. I can't do a damn thing. I can't fly this doggone thing. Yeah. Thank you for the courage to put yourself out there, but we shouldn't take advantage of you. But yeah, they generally will boil down to some of those basic common denominators. Feeling out of control, feeling trapped. Everything boils down to those three.
I think that with the grief thing of what will people think, even if you did procrastinate, you did a great job, we're a really results-oriented profession. If you lost, it doesn't matter how good of a grief it was, you still lost. And so, it's just saying, well, people think I'm an awful lawyer, even though this is the title of all griefs,
It's so part of law is black or white. It really boils down. It's not like we're going to get a smaller settlement out of this. We're not going to get any settlement at all. So part of what this is the first time I've seen this. So part of what happens for some of my attorneys that I work with is it's the black and whiteness of it all.
even if you are technically good as an attorney, you write, you have great language and everything else, if you don't win, you're not hired. You're not commercially successful.
Yeah.
And you might be right. Justice
Right.
is always right.
That's right.
And part of it is that you are being judged. I mean, there is the outcome
Yeah.
determines,
Right.
you can't avoid that.
And then you carry that shame with you, wherever you go. You're completely immortalized by it. Without enough research after before we decided to whatever the case may be.
Right.
I guess, but to a certain degree with that, part of our job too is a lot of times going in, we know, all right, it's about a 50-50 shot, half the courts are going this way, half or the other, I'm going to put my best argument out there. So I guess on those, I know I'm going to do the best I can do. I don't necessarily beat myself up on the outcome in that case because we know we're not completely ignorant going in if we have a strong or weak case. And I guess, I've just gone over to a public position where, we file A&N appeals, but they're going out of style all the time, and 95 or more % of those are going to be unsuccessful, no matter how hard you argue. And I guess sometimes we just need to help with the stress and to be realistic as far as, we all want to win, but we also know that we take positions and argue something, maybe when we're trying to change the law, we know not always will be successful the first time around, but maybe eventually we will, because we keep hammering at it. And eventually won't.
Well, again, talking about some of the things that we've talked about prior, how many people in the legal profession decompress after a case? Talk with other attorneys.
Yeah, frequently.
And does that help?
It can, yeah. It can, depends who you're talking to. Somebody yeah, you know, you should've, you know, they might say it nicer than that, but, yeah, you should've had that. And part of the problem is if you're in an appellate situation, or if you're writing a brief in a situation, the judge will say, well, I'm not gonna consider this, for example, because you didn't include this. And maybe the judge knew that you shouldn't expect to do that, but he needs it out to decide the way he wants. You know what I mean? But you take that as a judgment upon yourself, when in reality, it's just an accommodation for the judge not to rule your way for Democratic position, but he knows you're right. I know.
Well, I guess all I'm trying to convey is that I think it's important for us, when we keep misery to ourselves, the chance that we will feel miserable grows exponentially.
Yeah, it helps a lot talking to other
And particularly attorneys that we know will be fair and affirming.
attorneys.
So to just share it with another guy that just opens up on us, that's stupid, that's naive. But for us to have a group of people, I mean, I work with a lot of law enforcement. They go through trauma. Firemen, they go through trauma. And a lot of times, the reason that they come in to see me is because they haven't talked with their other colleagues. And that's what they need to talk about. They have a lot more merit. They have a lot more swing in the feedback than I do. Because they'll say to me, you don't know what you're talking about. And they're right. I wasn't there. I don't do that. Well, somebody had a hand up.
So that's, I think, where a role of a mentor can relate to a good client who has that kind of relationship with the lawyer colleague that will be in that kind of conversation.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm saying is that if we've never even considered having a mentor, developing some mentors in our world, if we don't like our job, maybe it's because we're isolating and doing our job. And isolation doesn't take away the responsibility, but it kind of distributes the load a little bit. When I kept everything to myself after what I perceived as a failure, it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. You know, my creative mind was amazing in a negative way. And then with the shame that we didn't really have a chance to describe a whole lot today, we can bring back all sorts of other examples of how, yeah, you really are a screw up. You really are worthless. You really should have known. And that's the kind of belief systems, the I statements, I should have known better, I should have been able to do something. Remember the woman that I talked about that found her husband blue? One of the thoughts that came to her when we were doing the EMDR is, one of the things that was beating her up is I should have been able to revive him. And one of the thoughts that came to her is I did my best. And once she realized that, and then she was able to integrate that loss. It was much more comfortable.
Should have known this standard you find so many times in the law. Somebody either knew or should have known. You hear that so many times. I mean, it's, you know, criminal statutes, knew or should have known, on and on and on, you know.
Well, that's what we talked about before. We should honor somebody. And when we have more people in our lives to distribute the load, and helps us to remind us of things we already know, but we, at the moment, because we're so busy beating ourselves up, we fail to remind ourselves of that. Those are important people in our life. I forget all about the positive things when I'm failed. We have real nearsighted eyesight at that point. We just don't see it. Yes.
Is there a genetic component to anxiety or depression, or is it more environmental from, you know, Karen, you talk about your father and mother and the passing it on through generations and almost breaking the cycle. Is there a genetic component, or is it environmental?
that's one of the interesting things going to the national conference every year, because there's a component of people that think it's entirely genetic, and there's a component of people that think it's entirely learned. And frankly, I like being in the middle, because I think there's both. And you look at it, it makes a whole lot more sense. Either side has the answer. That's why living in one extreme or the other is kind of the easiest place to live. But living in the middle takes the most sophistication. And it's really where most of life is lived, is in the middle. But I have 2 sons. And from the day they were born, from the day they were conceived, they were different. You know, one laid in the womb and the other one kicked constantly. And the one that was the kicker is still kicking. And he's 28 years old. Actually, he's gotten himself in a lot of trouble. And it's been, the last 2 years have been the most painful years of my life. Just because he's been involved in the legal process. I was never involved in the legal process except as an expert witness. But he's been deeply entrenched in the legal system. And for a while, the thing that made it most painful for me was I blamed myself as a father. I knew that was irrational because I frankly think that I was a very good father. And then I started going to Al-Anon, and that was incredibly helpful. But now I'm not quite sure. Am I feeling better because he's in such a better place, or am I feeling better because of what I've learned in Al-Anon? Frankly, I don't care. I'm going to keep my ass in Al-Anon, an insurance policy, because what I'm learning in Al-Anon is exactly what I'm teaching here at a much deeper level, much more subtle level. Al-Anon is an incredibly spiritual program. So, yeah, you're right. I think there's both components. Yes.
I don't want to pry, but from what I've heard, your father drank. Are you just...
Father, my dad's, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm just kind of curious where the Al-Anon comes from in the whole.
My dad, my son,
Okay.
Marine. Think of Marine drinking. The Marines was a good thing for him, but he learned some bad habits. So he was driving home from his son's home. They had just gone through a custody battle with his girlfriend. He never got married to this woman. And he was driving home to Rapid City. They'd gone through a breakup. He was going to kind of celebrate the custody being settled. And he went to Deadwood. Before thinking, my son was behind in his payments, so he thought he needed to stop in Deadwood to earn some money. And he had a couple free drinks while he was there, and took off to go the rest of the way into Rapid, and was pulled over by the police for failure to dim his lights. So they were checking to see if he'd been drinking. He's a Marine. They weren't going to stop me. So he eluded the police for 100 miles. No, 70 miles at 100 miles an hour. At 2 o'clock in the morning in Sturgis. So, you see how deeply he is in right now? The first thing when they threw him on the ground and cuffed him was he said, I just got my son and I was afraid if I got pulled over for drinking that I would have his custody taken away. Wouldn't have gotten taken away for a first-time offense of drinking, but now that he's eluded the police, he may lose the custody of his son. So, yeah, it's been a pretty painful time for me right now. And I've had to really be reminded of what I teach in my daily teaching. But Alan, imagine telling a whole group of attorneys what I've been through for the last 2 years.
That's why we're the secular ones. We've heard it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bet you have.
He was only going 100?
Yeah.
Why did I have 120?
Yeah, he went off the road twice to avoid the spikes in the road. The second one, he got it. Okay, so let's do the deep relaxation. We've talked about it all day long. Pretty important skill, something that you can take home with you. I do have CDs out there if you're interested. So, it's going to be in a whole lot more detail than the exercise that I had you do before. But again, use your creativity. And let me remind you before we do this deep relaxation about the three components. Number one, breathing properly. At the beginning, just put a hand on your stomach to remind yourself to let those muscles relax. Because if you keep panting or holding your breath, that's what people typically do when they're anxious, then you're not getting sufficient oxygen. So with each passing breath, allow it to become deeper and slower. Now, people have really learned, which is not our goal today, people have learned to breathe once an hour. They buried them in tombs and they breathe once an hour. They've learned to do that. That's not our goal today, but it shows you the possibility. So breathe deeper and slower. The second thing we'll talk about is the ability to just completely relax our entire body, to transcend our reality. And number three is I'm going to be bringing in a component to help you to recognize how your thinking contributes to the way your body feels. Those are the three things we're going to do. So just begin by either finding a place in a room to concentrate your attention or to close your eyes, unfold your arms and your legs, lean back in the chair. And begin by taking a deep breath. In and out. In and out. Like the waves of an ocean. Taking it in and pausing. Letting it go, pausing. Allow yourself to picture a light above your head, a warm light, any color that you like. And we're going to use that light to go inside, to act as a third eye, to be aware of where any tension may lie. And as you become aware of it, slowly let it go. Allow that light to enter through the top of your head and to wave back and forth inside your head. Being aware of all the little things that you keep on your mind, all of which takes so much energy. And for just a moment, with each passing breath, let them go one by one. Until the only things that you're thinking about is that light and my voice. All of their sounds, all of their objects in the room only help you to focus your attention more fully on relaxing. Allow that light to pay particular attention to the muscles around your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and your jaw. Allowing those muscles to stay and to relax. And if you end up breathing with your mouth just slightly open, that's fine. Allow that light to move down to your chin, up along your jaw, towards your ears, back of your head, and finally up to the top of your head once again. massaging the muscles that connect your neck to your head, and later your neck to your shoulder, until they too relax. Allow that light to pause at the top of your neck, break into two lights equally as warm, equally as relaxing. Allowing one light to move across one shoulder as one moves across the other. Massaging